I'm Abigail, 34, living my best life in Boston when my phone rang with sister drama that would change everything. Rebecca, always the family first one, dropped her bombshell, pregnancy number 4 and a demand disguised as a request. "The kids will move in with you until I give birth," she announced, like I'd won some twisted lottery. Her certainty left me speechless. How did we go from occasional babysitting to becoming an instant mom of 3? If you're watching from your own family drama, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're from. Let me tell you how a simple no changed everything. I've always been the type of person who plans everything meticulously. My condo in downtown Boston reflects this: modern, minimalist, and precisely organized. As a marketing executive for a tech company, I've worked hard to create this life. My home office overlooks the city skyline, inspirational artwork adorns the walls, and my kitchen barely gets used except for my morning coffee routine. I travel at least twice a month for work, sometimes internationally. My calendar is color-coded to the minute. This isn't just preference, it's how I built my success. Rebecca and I grew up just outside Boston, only 4 years apart. As kids, we were inseparable despite our differences. She was always the nurturing one, mothering her dolls while I built elaborate businesses with my toys. We shared a room until I was 12, and even though we fought like typical sisters, there was never any doubt we had each other's backs. College changed things. I went to NYU for marketing while Rebecca stayed local, meeting Michael during her sophomore year. They married right after graduation, and Emma arrived less than a year later. By 30, Rebecca had 3 kids and a beautiful colonial-style house in the suburbs, complete with a white picket fence. While I climbed the corporate ladder, Rebecca embraced motherhood with her whole heart. Emma, now 10, is artistic and sensitive. Ethan, 8, is all energy and sports. Little Lily, just 5, is the perfect combination of both creative and spirited. They're amazing kids, though admittedly a handful. Rebecca's parenting style has always been what I'd call organized chaos. She loves her children fiercely but often seems overwhelmed by the reality of raising them. Michael works long hours as a construction project manager, leaving Rebecca to handle most of the day-to-day parenting. She's constantly running between school drop-offs, soccer practice, dance lessons, and doctor appointments. "I don't know how you do it all," I told her once during a rare sisters' lunch. She laughed, dark circles evident under her eyes. "I don't. That's why I have you." That casual comment reflected our evolving relationship. Over the years, I'd become Rebecca's backup. The aunt who could be called for emergency babysitting, school pickups when Rebecca had doctor appointments, or weekend sleepovers when she and Michael needed a break. I didn't mind, usually. I love my niece and nephews. But there was an unspoken assumption that because I didn't have children of my own, my time was somehow less valuable. Small favors gradually expanded. Weekend stays became 3-day stretches. "Can you take them Friday through Monday?" Michael and I really need this getaway turned into a pattern. Financial help became another expectation. When Ethan needed specialized sports equipment or Emma wanted summer art camp, Rebecca would casually mention the costs, followed by, "We're a little tight this month." I'd offer to help, and she'd accept immediately, as if she'd been waiting for it. Our parents reinforced this dynamic. Retired to Florida 5 years ago, they dote on Rebecca's children from afar, sending gifts and making twice-yearly visits. During family video calls, they'd praise Rebecca for doing the important work of raising the next generation while asking me about that job of yours as an afterthought. "When are you going to settle down, Abby?" Mom would ask predictably. "Your career is wonderful, but family is what really matters in the end." These comments stung, reinforcing the notion that my choices somehow ranked below Rebecca's. We'd had many conversations about our different paths growing up. I'd always been clear about prioritizing my career, while Rebecca had dreamed of a large family since we were teens. "I want at least 4 kids," she'd said back in high school, while I rolled my eyes. "1 is my maximum," I'd replied. "Maybe. If I meet the right person." That right person hadn't materialized, though not for lack of opportunities. My lifestyle and ambitions didn't mesh well with traditional family expectations, and I'd chosen independence over uncomfortable compromises. Last Thanksgiving at my parents' Florida home, Rebecca had hinted at big news while passing the cranberry sauce, then winked at Michael mysteriously. I'd assumed they were planning a vacation or home renovation. Our parents seemed equally curious, but Rebecca just smiled and changed the subject. Later that evening, I overheard her talking to Mom in the kitchen. "We'll need all hands on deck if it happens," she whispered. "Especially Abby." I'd thought nothing of it then, just another cryptic Rebecca moment. She'd always had a flair for the dramatic, turning simple announcements into elaborate reveals. The pattern was clear in retrospect. While I'd established boundaries in other areas of my life, with Rebecca, they remained porous. Each concession created precedent for the next request. The occasional babysitting became regular weekend care. Financial loans became gifts. And throughout it all, there was the underlying current. Her choices were somehow more legitimate than mine because she'd chosen the traditional path of motherhood. What bothered me most wasn't the helping, it was the assumption. The lack of true gratitude. The expectation that I would drop everything because Rebecca's needs automatically trumped mine. All reinforced by our parents, who viewed my sister as the responsible adult and me as the career woman who would grow up eventually. I just never imagined how far these assumptions would go, or that a single phone call would force me to finally establish the boundaries I should have set years ago. My phone rang on a Tuesday evening as I was preparing for an important client presentation. Rebecca's name flashed on the screen, and I briefly considered letting it go to voicemail. These calls typically involved some urgent need, a sick child when she had another commitment, or transportation issues with conflicting schedules. But sisterly obligation won out. "Hey, Becca," I answered, switching to speaker so I could continue organizing my notes. "Abby." Her voice had that particular pitch of excitement that usually preceded a request. "I have amazing news." I braced myself. "What's up?" "We're pregnant." The joy in her voice was unmistakable. "Baby number 4 is on the way." Despite my complicated feelings about Rebecca's expanding family, I felt genuine happiness for her. She'd always wanted 4 children, and now her dream was coming true. "That's wonderful, Becca. Congratulations. How are you feeling? When are you due?" "October, so about 7 months from now." Her voice shifted slightly. "But that's actually why I'm calling. This pregnancy is different." The change in her tone made me put down my pen. "Different how? Is everything okay?" "The doctor says it's high risk. I'm older now, and there were complications with Lily's birth, so they're being extra cautious." She paused dramatically. "I need to minimize stress and might need bed rest later on." "I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds challenging." I felt the first stirrings of unease. "How can I help?" Rebecca took a deep breath. "Well, that's the thing. With Michael's work schedule and my condition, we've made a decision." Her voice became artificially casual. "The kids will move in with you until I give birth." "It's the perfect solution." I laughed, thinking it was one of Rebecca's jokes. "Right. Good one. Seriously though, what do you need?" Silence followed, then, "I am serious, Abby. We've thought it all through. You have the extra bedroom, you can work from home, and the kids adore you. It's only for 4 or 5 months, starting in May when the school year ends." The reality of her request hit me like a physical blow. She wasn't asking if I could take her 3 children for nearly half a year, she was informing me it would happen. "Rebecca, that's not possible," I stammered, mind racing through the implications. "I have a demanding job with travel requirements. I live in a 2-bedroom condo in the city. The kids need stability, schools, their friends." "We figured all that out," she interrupted, irritation creeping into her voice. "Emma and Ethan can transfer to the Boston schools temporarily, they're excellent, actually. Lily isn't in kindergarten yet, so it doesn't matter for her." And you said yourself last month that your company is flexible about remote work. My occasional work-from-home days were vastly different from becoming a full-time caregiver to 3 children while maintaining my executive position. Becca, I have major client presentations, business trips already booked. I can't just. You can reschedule those. This is family, Abby. It's not like you have children of your own to worry about. The dismissive way she referenced my childless status stung. Michael can't take 5 months off work, we'd lose the house. Mom and Dad are too old to handle 3 energetic kids. You're literally our only option. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Have you looked into other solutions? A mother's helper? Family medical leave for Michael? Rotating help from friends? Her sigh was heavy with martyrdom. Do you think I'd ask if we had other options? This isn't a want, Abby, it's a need. The doctor said stress could endanger the baby. The manipulation was becoming transparent, but I still felt the pull of guilt. I understand this is difficult, but you're asking me to completely upend my life without any discussion. I'd need time to even consider. There isn't time. I've already told the kids they'll be staying with Aunt Abby for a special long vacation. Emma's excited about exploring Boston with you. That revelation sent a shock through me. You told them already? Before even asking me? I knew you'd say yes, she said, confidence unwavering. You're their aunt. That's what family does. Rebecca, you can't make life-altering decisions for me and assume I'll fall in line. I love the kids, but this is selfish, she supplied, voice hardening. Is that what you're being right now? Selfish? The accusation hit its mark. Was I being selfish? Was my career really more important than my sister's health and pregnancy? I'm not saying no, I clarified, though part of me wanted to. I'm saying I need to think about this. To see if it's even feasible. What's there to think about? I need you. The kids need you. Her voice cracked. I thought I could count on you. Becca, please try to understand. No, you understand. This is my health and my baby's life we're talking about. But apparently, your precious job and fancy condo are more important than family. Before I could respond, she delivered her parting shot, call me when you decide family actually matters to you, and hung up. I sat in stunned silence, staring at my phone. The meticulously organized presentation notes on my desk now seemed trivial compared to the chaos Rebecca had just introduced into my life. My hand shook slightly as I tried to process what had just happened. The text came 10 minutes later, the kids will be so disappointed in their aunt. I hope you're happy with your decision. I hadn't even made a decision yet. But Rebecca's assumption and manipulation were pushing me toward one I never thought I'd make. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned, Rebecca's words echoing in my mind. Was I truly being selfish? The accusation cut deeper than I wanted to admit. By morning, I felt exhausted but determined to approach this rationally. I called Jessica, my closest friend since college and the voice of reason in my life. She did what? Jessica exclaimed after I explained the situation over coffee at our favorite cafe. That's not asking for help, Abby. That's a hostile takeover of your life. But she's pregnant, I said, voicing my conflicted feelings. What if something happens to the baby because I said no? Jessica placed her hand over mine. That's emotional manipulation. You're not responsible for her pregnancy or her choices. Has she even explored alternatives? That question stayed with me as I returned home. Had Rebecca actually investigated other options, or had she simply identified the path of least resistance, me? I opened my laptop and began methodically analyzing the situation, just as I would a complex work project. First, I reviewed my calendar for the next 6 months. 3 international business trips, 2 major client launches, and the department restructuring I was spearheading. My work wasn't just busy, it was pivotal for my career trajectory. Next, I researched family resources in Rebecca's area. Her town offered several mother's helper programs, postpartum doula services, and even a community family support network for precisely these situations. I compiled a list, complete with contact information and estimated costs. I called HR to inquire about extended family leave options, but as expected, the policies were designed for parents, not aunts suddenly tasked with childcare. I could take 2 weeks of personal leave, but anything beyond that would jeopardize my position. "We value your contributions, Abigail," my HR director said carefully, "but an extended absence during these key projects would be problematic. The financial impact would be substantial too. Beyond potential career damage, the immediate costs of housing, feeding, and caring for 3 children in Boston were daunting. My condo association had strict rules about extended guest stays, potentially requiring me to formally add them to my lease or face significant fines." Standing in my spare bedroom that evening, I tried to envision the space transformed for children. The room currently served as my home office and occasional guest room, with my desk, bookshelves, and a pull-out sofa. 3 kids would need beds, storage for clothes, toys, school supplies. Where would I work? Where would they play? My minimalist sanctuary would become a chaotic family home overnight. The memory of last summer's week-long visit flooded back. I'd taken time off to give the kids a Boston Adventure Week. By day 3, I was exhausted. Lily had separation anxiety and cried each night. Ethan's energy had nowhere to go in my condo. Emma accidentally spilled juice on my laptop. I'd needed 2 days to recover after they left, and that was just 1 week, not 5 months. My phone pinged with a text from Rebecca. "The kids are asking when they can pack for Aunt Abby's." What should I tell them? Another manipulation tactic. She was using the children as emotional leverage. This pattern wasn't new, I realized. Throughout our adult lives, Rebecca had consistently framed her needs as emergencies that required my assistance, while dismissing my needs as optional or self-indulgent. When I missed Emma's dance recital due to a business trip, I was prioritizing work over family. When Rebecca forgot my birthday because Ethan was sick, it was just how it is when you're a mother. The imbalance had become our normal, reinforced by our parents and even some friends who viewed my career-focused life as somehow less meaningful than Rebecca's family-centered one. I thought back to other incidents: Rebecca borrowing $2,000 for Lily's preschool tuition, still unpaid 3 years later. The Christmas I flew home early from a vacation because Rebecca said she couldn't handle the holiday alone while Michael worked, only to discover she'd mainly wanted help with cooking and gift wrapping. The countless times I'd rearranged my schedule for her needs, while my requests for similar consideration were met with explanations about the rigidity of family life. As night fell, I made a decision. I would say no, not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect and the recognition that enabling Rebecca's expectations wasn't helping either of us. I carefully drafted an email listing all the alternative solutions I'd researched, including offers of financial assistance for hired help and weekend visits when I could take the kids. I proposed a family meeting to discuss how everyone could contribute to supporting Rebecca during her pregnancy. My finger hovered over the send button for several minutes before I decided this conversation needed to happen voice to voice. I would call her tomorrow with compassion but firmness. "You're doing the right thing," Jessica assured me during our morning check-in call. "Boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary." I repeated this to myself as I dialed Rebecca's number, bracing for the conversation that would either transform our relationship for the better or damage it beyond repair. The next afternoon, I called Rebecca. My heart pounded as I waited through 4 rings before she answered with a cool, "Finally decided to call back, I see." "Hi, Becca. Yes, I wanted to talk about your request." I kept my voice even, drawing on years of negotiation experience in the corporate world. "I've been thinking about it carefully." "Great." Her tone immediately warmed. "I was thinking the kids could come the second weekend in May to get settled before Emma's school transfer the following Monday. That gives you about 6 weeks to prepare." She was still assuming my answer would be yes. I took a deep breath. "Actually, Rebecca, I've looked at this from all angles, and I can't take the kids for that length of time. I quickly continued before she could interrupt. But I've researched some alternatives I think could work even better for everyone. Alternatives? Her voice sharpened. What alternatives? I told you, we don't have options. I think you do, I said gently. I found several Mother's Helper programs in your area specifically designed for high-risk pregnancies. There's also a community support network that coordinates meal deliveries and childcare help. I'm happy to contribute financially toward these services. Silence followed, then a harsh laugh. So you Googled some services and think that solves everything? These are children, Abby, not a work project you can delegate. I know that. I also know that my work commitments make it impossible for me to provide the stable care they deserve for 5 straight months. I've offered solutions that keep your perfect life intact while I struggle, she cut in. I get it now. Your career will always come first. I felt my resolve wavering but pushed forward. That's not fair, Becca. I'm offering substantial help, just not in the exact form you demanded without even asking me first. Demanded? Her voice rose. I'm asking for help during a difficult pregnancy. God forbid your precious routine gets disrupted for family. This isn't about my routine, I said, frustration mounting. It's about what's realistic. I can't be a full-time caregiver while maintaining my job. The kids deserve better than a stressed-out, overwhelmed aunt trying to do everything at once. Other women manage careers and children every day, she snapped. Yes, with planning, support systems, and childcare arrangements built over time, not dropped into the role overnight for 3 children with established lives elsewhere. The conversation was deteriorating rapidly. I tried again. I can take the kids on weekends when I'm not traveling. I can help financially with whatever childcare solution you choose. I can come stay with you for a week or 2 when the baby arrives. There are many ways I can support you that don't involve completely appending 4 lives. Rebecca's voice turned cold. This is why you're still single, Abby. You're too selfish to care about anyone but yourself. Too rigid to make space in your life for what really matters. The personal attack stung. That's incredibly unfair. My relationship status has nothing to do with this situation. Doesn't it? You've chosen your career over everything else. Now you're choosing it over your family's well-being. I'm choosing a solution that works for everyone, including the children, I insisted. They need stability and consistent care, not an aunt working 60-hour weeks while trying to parent them in an environment that's not set up for family living. Stop pretending this is about the kids' well-being. Rebecca shouted. This is about your convenience, period. I thought when it really mattered, when we really needed you, you'd step up. I guess I was wrong. I felt tears threatening but kept my voice steady. I am stepping up, just not in the exact way you prescribed without consulting me. That's not how respectful relationships work, Becca. Don't lecture me about relationships, she sneered. At least I built something real with Michael, not just a collection of meeting notes and frequent flyer miles. The conversation was becoming toxic. I think we should talk about this when emotions aren't so high. I've sent you an email with all the resources I found. Please look them over. Oh, I'll look them over right after I tell the kids their aunt doesn't want them, she said bitterly. I'm sure they'll understand it's nothing personal, just a business decision. Rebecca, that's not fair to the children or to me. Don't put them in the middle of this. You put them there by refusing to help. Her voice broke. You know what? Forget it. Forget I ever asked. Forget the kids asked about you every day. We'll manage without you, like we always do when it really matters. Becca, please. I have to go. My doctor said to avoid stress, remember? The stress you clearly don't care about. Her voice hardened. You're dead to me right now, Abigail. I hope your corner office keeps you warm at night. The call ended abruptly, leaving me standing in my kitchen, phone in hand, tears finally breaking free. Despite knowing I'd made the only decision I realistically could, the weight of her accusation crushed down. Had I failed as a sister? As an aunt? I sank onto my couch, body shaking with silent sobs. The rational part of my brain understood I'd made the responsible choice, but the emotional part felt like I'd committed an unforgivable betrayal. My phone pinged with a text message. Rebecca, the kids will be devastated. Hope you're happy. Another manipulation, but effective nonetheless. I imagined Emma's confused face, Ethan's disappointment, little Lily asking why they couldn't visit Aunt Abby anymore. I curled up on my sofa, professional composure completely abandoned, and let myself cry until exhaustion took over. The hardest part wasn't saying no, it was living with the knowledge that my sister saw that no as proof I didn't love her or her children enough. Even in my distress, though, a small voice persisted, if Rebecca truly loved me, would she have put me in this impossible position to begin with? I awoke the next morning to 3 missed calls from my parents. Rebecca had wasted no time involving them. With a resigned sigh, I returned the call. Abigail Marie Thompson, my father began, using my full name as he had when I was in trouble as a child. What's this about you refusing to help your sister? I'd prepared for this, but the reality was still jarring. Dad, I didn't refuse to help. I refused one specific request that wasn't feasible for me, and offered several alternatives. Your sister is having a high-risk pregnancy, my mother interjected, her voice thick with disappointment. Family always comes first, Abigail. We raised you better than this. I agree family matters, I said carefully. That's why I've offered financial help, weekend care, and researched services specifically designed for situations like this. Services? Mom scoffed. Rebecca needs family, not hired strangers. She needs practical solutions, I countered. Taking 3 children into a space not designed for them, while working full-time, isn't what's best for anyone involved. When I had complications with Rebecca, your Aunt Marge moved in with us for 4 months to help with you, Dad said. She didn't make excuses about her job or her apartment. I bit back a sharp response. That was a different time, Dad. Aunt Marge was a teacher with summers off, and she moved into your 4-bedroom house. My situation is not comparable. Your sister is heartbroken, Mom added. She said you accused her of manipulation and called her children burdens. That's absolutely not true, I said, anger finally breaking through. I never said anything remotely like that. I love those kids. Just not enough to inconvenience yourself, Dad muttered. The conversation deteriorated from there. No matter how rationally I explained my position or how many alternatives I suggested, my parents remained convinced I was selfishly abandoning my sister in her time of need. What kind of aunt are you? Mom asked, delivering the blow she knew would hurt most. By the time we hung up, I felt emotionally battered. My parents had always favored Rebecca, but never had the disparity been so painfully obvious. Within days, the family grapevine was buzzing. Rebecca had shared her version of events widely, a sanitized narrative where her reasonable request for help during a medical emergency had been coldly rejected by her career-obsessed sister. My cousin Melissa texted, heard about the situation with Becca. Maybe you could reconsider? Family's everything in the end. My uncle Robert called, Rebecca's pregnancy is high risk. You could lose your only sister or the baby. Is your job worth that risk? Each interaction reinforced the story Rebecca had crafted, that I had chosen career over family, convenience over compassion. No one mentioned the alternatives I'd researched or the financial assistance I'd offered. In Rebecca's version, I had simply said no and walked away. Even my social media felt hostile territory. Rebecca posted a tearful selfie with the caption, "When you realize who's really there for you during life's challenges." Thankful for those who step up without being asked. Family first disappointed. Though she hadn't named me, the comments filled with supportive messages and vague condemnations of selfish people who don't understand family obligations. I stopped scrolling when I saw my mother had commented, "We're here for you, sweetheart. Always." The implied contrast to my absence was unmistakable. I was considering a social media hiatus when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Abigail? It's Michael, Rebecca's husband. Surprised, I answered cautiously. Michael. Hi. Listen, he said, his voice hushed as if he didn't want to be overheard. I wanted to apologize for how this has all played out. His words caught me completely off guard. You're apologizing to me? Rebecca shouldn't have sprung this on you the way she did. We'd discussed asking if you could help more with the kids during the pregnancy, but the whole moving in for 5 months thing, that was her idea, and honestly, it surprised me too. I sat down, processing this revelation. I thought you both had decided this was the only option. Michael sighed. Rebecca tends to fixate on solutions. Once she decided you taking the kids was the answer, she couldn't see alternatives. But we do have options we haven't fully explored. Like what? I asked. My mother offered to come stay with us for extended periods. My company has family medical leave available. And the doctor hasn't even mentioned bed rest yet, Rebecca's just assuming worst-case scenarios. This information shifted my understanding of the situation dramatically. She told me you couldn't take time off or you'd lose the house. That's an exaggeration, he admitted. We'd be stretched thin, but not destitute. Look, I love my wife, but she can be dramatic when she's stressed. This pregnancy wasn't exactly planned. The conversation with Michael provided much-needed perspective. Rebecca wasn't facing this crisis alone with me as her only lifeline, she had simply decided I was the most convenient solution and presented it as the only possibility. Thank you for telling me this, I said. It helps to know I'm not actually abandoning her without options. You're not, he confirmed. And for what it's worth, I think your alternatives were thoughtful. I'll work on Rebecca. Just give her time. After we hung up, I felt a weight lift. I wasn't imagining the manipulation or exaggeration. The narrative Rebecca had constructed wasn't reality. This realization was both vindicating and deeply sad. Our relationship had devolved to a point where truth was secondary to getting her way, where my boundaries were obstacles to be bulldozed rather than respected. As the days passed, the family division became more pronounced. Most relatives sided with Rebecca, viewing her as the vulnerable pregnant mother in need. But surprisingly, a few reached out with support. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, called unexpectedly. I heard about the situation with Rebecca, she began. I steeled myself for another lecture. And I want you to know you're absolutely right to set boundaries. Shocked, I nearly dropped the phone. You think so? Absolutely. Your sister has always been, let's say, dramatic. And your parents have always enabled it. You're allowed to have limits, Abigail. Saying no doesn't mean you don't love them. Aunt Linda's support brought tears to my eyes. Everyone else seems to think I'm heartless. Because Rebecca's controlling the narrative, Linda said matter-of-factly. It's her specialty. Remember when she convinced everyone you'd ruined her sweet 16 by inviting your boyfriend, when actually she'd told you to bring him? The memory made me smile despite everything. Rebecca had always been skilled at reshaping reality to cast herself as the protagonist or victim when necessary. Stand your ground, Aunt Linda advised. The truth has a way of emerging eventually. Despite this pocket of support, the personal toll was mounting. I'd had trouble sleeping for days, my appetite had diminished, and anxiety followed me like a shadow. Several times I nearly called Rebecca to capitulate, just to end the family strife. But each time, I reminded myself of the reality: saying yes would harm my career, potentially damage my relationship with the children when I inevitably couldn't meet their needs adequately, and reinforce Rebecca's belief that my boundaries didn't matter. True love for myself, for Rebecca, and for the children meant making the difficult choice, not the expedient one. What I couldn't have anticipated was how quickly that truth would become apparent to everyone else. 3 weeks after our confrontation, my parents organized a family dinner at their Florida home. They'd flown north specifically to help Rebecca through this difficult time and invited the extended family ostensibly to celebrate the pregnancy, but I suspected it was partly to showcase my absence and perceived callousness. Against my better judgment, I decided to attend. If nothing else, I wanted to see my niece and nephews, who I missed terribly and hadn't been allowed to contact since the blow-up. The atmosphere when I arrived was frigid. My mother greeted me with a stiff hug, my father with barely a nod. Cousins and aunts engaged in polite small talk while clearly uncomfortable. Only Aunt Linda offered genuine warmth, squeezing my hand supportively. "Rebecca's running late," Mom announced. "She texted that traffic is terrible." I nodded, settling into wait, feeling like an intruder at what was supposedly my own family gathering. When Rebecca finally arrived an hour later, she made an entrance designed for maximum effect. Michael followed behind her, looking uncomfortable, with the 3 children trailing him. "Sorry everyone," Rebecca called out. "The highway was a disaster, and then we had to stop 3 times because pregnancy nausea is killing me this time around." She looked remarkably well for someone supposedly on the verge of bed rest. Her pregnancy was visible but not pronounced at 4 months, and she moved with energy as she circulated through the room, accepting congratulations and sympathy in equal measure. I remained in my corner, unsure of my reception. Emma spotted me first, her face lighting up. "Aunt Abby," she cried, running over to hug me. Ethan and Lily quickly followed, creating a pile of excited children in my arms. "We thought you didn't want to see us anymore," Ethan said, his small face serious. My heart broke. "That's not true at all. I love seeing you guys." "Mommy said we couldn't stay with you because you're too busy," Lily added, confusion evident in her voice. Before I could formulate an appropriate response, Rebecca materialized beside us. "Kids, go help Grandpa with the grill." Her tone left no room for argument. As they reluctantly departed, she fixed me with a cold stare. "I'm surprised you showed up." "I wanted to see the kids," I said simply. "And I thought maybe we could talk." "There's nothing to discuss. You made your priorities clear." She turned away dramatically, hand pressed to her lower back as if in pain, catching our mother's sympathetic eye across the room. Throughout dinner, Rebecca performed the role of suffering martyr to perfection. She mentioned her doctor-ordered bed rest multiple times, detailed how difficult daily tasks had become, and lamented how some people couldn't understand the challenges of pregnancy and motherhood. I noticed Michael's increasingly uncomfortable expression as these claims expanded. When Rebecca declined dessert because the doctor has me on a strict diet, he actually frowned. "Since when?" he asked. "Dr. Miller just told you to eat normally but watch the caffeine." Rebecca shot him a warning look. "You weren't at the follow-up appointment." "There wasn't a follow-up appointment scheduled until next week," he replied, confusion evident. An awkward silence fell over the table. My father, ever the peacemaker, quickly changed the subject. "Rebecca tells us she'll be moving the kids to Boston schools in May, Michael?" Michael looked genuinely surprised. "That's not the plan at all. The kids are staying in their current schools." Rebecca's face flushed. "Well, we're still figuring out arrangements." "I thought Abigail refused to help," my mother interjected, giving me a pointed look. "She refused to take the kids for 5 months, Rebecca corrected quickly. "But we're exploring other options now." "What happened to doctor-ordered bed rest and high-risk complications?" I asked quietly. "Those were the reasons you said the kids needed to move in with me." Rebecca's expression hardened. "The situation has evolved." "Has it?" Michael asked, his patience visibly thinning. "Because from what I can tell, the situation is exactly as it was when the doctor said this is a normal pregnancy with standard precautions." The facade was crumbling rapidly. My mother looked between Rebecca and Michael, confusion replacing certainty. "Rebecca said the doctor was very concerned," she said slowly. "He's appropriately cautious because of her age and previous delivery complications," Michael clarified. "But he never mentioned bed rest, special arrangements for the kids, or many of the other things Rebecca has apparently been claiming." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "You're making me sound like I lied." "I'm just being cautious for our baby." "There's cautious and there's manipulative," Michael responded, years of frustration evident in his tone. Telling your sister the kids needed to live with her for 5 months without even discussing it with me first was manipulative. The silence that followed was deafening. Every family member present stared at Rebecca, whose victim performance was rapidly unraveling. "Is that true, Rebecca?" my father asked quietly. "Did you exaggerate the medical situation?" "You don't understand," she whispered, tears flowing freely now. "With 3 kids already, I need help. I'm overwhelmed just thinking about managing them while pregnant and sick." "So you decided Abby should put her life on hold for 5 months rather than asking for reasonable assistance or exploring the options she researched?" Aunt Linda's crisp voice cut through the tension. Rebecca's shoulders slumped. It seemed like the simplest solution. She has the space, she doesn't have kids of her own to worry about. "I offered to help in multiple ways," I reminded her gently. "Financial support for childcare, weekend stays when possible, researching mother's helper programs. You rejected all of those options because they weren't exactly what you wanted. And then you portrayed Abigail as refusing to help at all," my mother added, the truth finally dawning on her. "You told us she called your children burdens." "I never said that," Rebecca protested. "No, but you implied it," my father said, disappointment evident in his voice. "You let us believe Abigail had abandoned you in a medical emergency, when in reality, you were trying to force an unreasonable arrangement on her." The family confrontation continued for some time, with Rebecca alternating between defensive anger and tearful apologies. Eventually, Michael took the increasingly confused children outside while the adults talked through the situation. Gradually, a new understanding emerged. Rebecca admitted she'd exaggerated the medical concerns, though the pregnancy did make managing 3 active children more challenging. She acknowledged her request had been unreasonable and her subsequent portrayal of my refusal unfair. "I just thought you'd say yes like you always do," she admitted quietly when we finally spoke alone on the porch. "When you didn't, I panicked and doubled down instead of looking at alternatives." "That's been our pattern for years," I observed. "You ask, I accommodate, regardless of the impact on my life." She nodded slowly. "I guess I've taken advantage of that. I'm sorry, Abby. Truly." It wasn't an instant reconciliation, but it was a beginning. As the evening wound down, we worked together with Michael, my parents, and other family members to create a realistic support plan for Rebecca's pregnancy. I would take the kids for 2 weekends a month when not traveling. My parents would come for a 2-week stay after the baby was born. Michael would use his accumulated leave strategically throughout the pregnancy. Rebecca would interview mother's helpers from the list I'd researched, with me contributing to the cost. Most importantly, communication would be open and honest, with no more manipulation or guilt-tripping. As I hugged my niece and nephews goodbye, Emma looked up at me seriously. "Are you still mad at Mom?" I smiled, choosing my words carefully. "I was never mad, sweetie. Sometimes adults disagree about the best way to handle situations. But we've figured it out now, and I'll see you soon for our special weekend in Boston." "That's a promise." For the first time in weeks, I drove home feeling lighter, the weight of family conflict beginning to lift. The relationship with my sister would need rebuilding, but at least now we had a foundation of honesty to build upon. 6 months later, I stood in the hospital room, holding my new nephew Noah, marveling at his tiny fingers and peaceful expression. Rebecca watched from her bed, exhausted but radiant after delivering a healthy 8-pound boy. "He looks just like Ethan did," I whispered, gently rocking the swaddled newborn. "But with your nose," Rebecca replied with a smile. "Poor kid." We both laughed, the ease between us a testament to the journey we'd traveled since that confrontational family dinner. The remainder of Rebecca's pregnancy had progressed without major complications. Our new arrangement had worked remarkably well. My weekend visits with the children had evolved into quality time I genuinely cherished: museum explorations with Emma, basketball games with Ethan, and puppet shows with Lily. The mother's helper, a retired teacher named Margaret, had become an integral part of Rebecca's support system. My financial contribution made it possible for her to come 3 days a week, giving Rebecca essential rest while keeping the children's routine stable. Most significantly, the family dynamics had shifted. My parents, shocked by Rebecca's manipulative behavior, had begun recognizing patterns they'd enabled for years. They made concerted efforts to acknowledge my contributions and respect my choices, no longer treating my career as a placeholder until real life began. Mom actually asked about my promotion yesterday, I told Rebecca as I reluctantly handed Noah back to her. Without adding "that's nice, dear," and immediately changing the subject to "your kids." Rebecca laughed. Progress. Though I still think she secretly hopes she'll be inspired by my maternal excellence and find a nice man to settle down with. One miraculous transformation at a time, I replied, smiling. My relationship with Rebecca's children had deepened through our weekend visits. Without the pressure of full-time caregiving in an unsuitable environment, I'd become the aunt I'd always wanted to be, present, engaged, and forming individual bonds with each child. Emma asked if she could shadow you at work someday, Rebecca mentioned. She says she wants to be a boss lady like Aunt Abby. The comment warmed my heart. Absolutely. Junior marketing executive Emma has a nice ring to it. Beyond immediate family, my relationship with extended relatives had evolved too. Those who had initially condemned me based on Rebecca's version of events had witnessed the truth emerge. Aunt Linda had become a closer confidant, her early support during the conflict creating a special bond between us. You stood up for what was right, even when it would have been easier to give in, she told me recently. That took courage. It had taken courage, but also a profound recognition of my own worth. The experience had forced me to acknowledge that my choices, my career, my life structure deserved the same respect as Rebecca's, even if they differed from traditional expectations. The most significant change was in my relationship with Rebecca herself. The conflict had shattered our dysfunctional patterns, making space for a more honest connection. She no longer assumed my availability or resources were hers to command. I no longer felt obligated to sacrifice my needs for hers. Instead, we communicated openly about expectations and limitations. I need to apologize again, Rebecca said suddenly, adjusting sleeping Noah in her arms. Not just for the pregnancy drama, but for years of taking you for granted. We're past that, I assured her. No, I need to say it. I resented your freedom and success, so I tried to make you feel guilty for not having the challenges I chose. That wasn't fair. Her candor surprised me. I sometimes envied your certainty, I admitted. You always knew exactly what you wanted, Michael, the kids, this life. I'm still figuring it out as I go. Different paths, both valid, she said softly. I'm sorry it took a complete meltdown for me to see that. As I prepared to leave the hospital, promising to return with the other children for a visit the next day, I reflected on everything the past 6 months had taught me. The hardest no I'd ever said had led to the most honest yes I could give, yes to boundaries that protected my well-being, yes to support that was genuine rather than coerced, yes to a relationship with my sister built on mutual respect rather than obligation. I'd learned that family obligation and personal autonomy weren't opposing forces but complementary ones. My boundaries hadn't diminished my love for Rebecca or her children, they'd created space for that love to flourish in healthy ways. In the hospital parking lot, I paused to send a group text to the family with a picture of baby Noah. As congratulatory responses flooded in, I smiled at the journey we'd all taken together. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for others is to be truthful about what we can and cannot give. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, not erasing them. And sometimes, the family we build isn't defined by endless sacrifice but by mutual respect and understanding. Have you ever had to say a difficult no to someone you love? How did it affect your relationship in the long run? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this story resonated with you. Remember, setting healthy boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for authentic relationships that truly last. Thank you for listening to my story today.